Hey, I want to blow your mind real quick. Did you know that the number one skill sought after by employers in the 21st century is not the ability to do well on a standardized test? I know, pretty shocking, right? Now, what's funny is like if you're an employer right now, you're watching this and you're like, yeah, no duh. I need people who are well-rounded, who can solve real problems and work with other people and be able to communicate and take complex ideas and get them across to other people. This is what I need. And if you're a teacher right now, you might be watching this and think, yeah, I know, I want my students to be well-rounded. I know that for them to actually do well in college or to do well in career or succeed in life or to be a productive member of society, they need more than just the ability to do well on tests. Or if you're a parent right now, you're like, yes, I want my kid to be well-rounded. I need this. We all know this. Matter of fact, the number one skill sought after by employers, number one is the ability to work in a team structure. Number two is the ability to communicate with others. Number three is your ability to prioritize and organize your time. Number four, the ability to solve problems and critically think. And then number five is the ability to obtain and process information. It's number five on the list, the ability to get all this information and do something with it. There seems to be four that are above this. And yet we have an education system as a whole that emphasizes just number five on that list. We have an education system that has this set of standards, and it says every student needs to be able to assess and show proficiency in these standards. We're going to measure schools' success based completely solely on students' abilities to do well on these standardized tests. We're going to measure teachers and their effectiveness in their jobs, not on how they connect with students, not on how they build relationships, not on how they teach their students how to collaborate and solve real problems, not on how well they are creating well-rounded students. We're going to assess them just on their ability to do well on a standardized test, on a multiple choice test, which I should also mention, these tests are owned by private companies. So it's just interesting to me because any teacher you talk to already knows this. You already know this. Any administrator you talk to knows this. We know the value of creating well-rounded students, and yet we have this system that emphasizes just this very specific part of us. And I think it's really inaccurate, and I think it's doing a disservice to our whole society. And I think most of you would probably agree with me. I mean, it's maddening. It's maddening when I talk to teachers like the one I talked to who was telling me that, her principal expects her to follow this script to a T in her school, so much so that when he leaves the room next door and walks into her room, she should be finishing the sentence of the teacher next door. She's that scripted, she's that chained down. And I asked her, I was like, why does your principal do this? She's like, it's frustrating and I get upset with my principal about it, but I'm also just frustrated with the fact that my principal kind of has to do this. There's this expectation for him and how he runs the school to do well. And he's found that the best way to prepare students to do well on these tests is to make sure that we all follow this script. It's like everybody's chained down. Everybody's hands are tied to this broken system. Or when you read the news and you hear politicians and people in charge of public education talking about how our system is failing, how it's falling apart, how we're not keeping up with the rest of the world. And yet all of these judgments on how we're a failing system are based on this little minuscule part of what the education system is actually doing. It's all just based on test scores. And number five on my list, right? And number five on the list of the essential skills needed in the world. And it's not talking about how well teachers are creating collaborators. It's not talking about how well students are growing in their ability to critically think and solve problems. It's just talking about these standardized tests. And you can see that I'm pretty passionate about this because it ticks me off. It ticks me off that we have brilliant educators out there who are just oozing with creativity and passion and love for the work that they do, feeling stifled, feeling chained down by this system that doesn't seem to be agreed upon by anybody. That doesn't seem that anybody actually supports it. Now, when I first got into teaching, I was like, you know what? I felt these same frustrations. I was like, we need to go and blow up the whole system. We need to get rid of all standardized tests and maybe even subject matter and content. Just get rid of it all and actually focus on what matters most. But I've done this a while now. And I'm acquainted with this thing called the real world. And I realize that we do need to make sure we're assessing students on content still. There's still a place for teaching subject matter. It's still number 5 on the list. Employers still need people who know how to obtain and process complex information. We still need to teach the Pythagorean theorem and how to factor polynomials and how photosynthesis works. And there's still value in teaching Shakespeare and there's still value in content and subject matter. I'm not saying that anymore. I don't think we need to ditch all of that. They're still good. However, we do need to emphasize these other skills equally, or maybe even more. We need to stop thinking of these skills as soft skills, things that come secondary to the standardized tests. But we need to see them as essential skills, something that needs to be in the bedrock of every single school and every single education system. And so I think this is a conversation we need to keep having, and we need to keep being loud about. We need to start designing more and more learning experiences that incorporate content and subject matter, but also learning experiences that require the development of these skills, that require students to actually solve problems and not just get their answers out of the odd questions in the back of a textbook, not just to be able to listen to a direct instruction and get all their information, but for them to have opportunities to figure out, to solve it, to collaborate with other people while they're doing it, to be able to communicate what they're learning, to be able to vocally and verbally talk to people about what they're learning. We need to emphasize these essential skills just as much, if not more, as the subject matter, as the stuff that's easier to assess, easier to deliver, easier to measure a school and determine if they're successful or failing or not, but at the same time leaves out this essential element of what it means to be a well-rounded, contributing member of society. So if we're all on the same page, if we're all on the same team, we're all in agreement here, then let's do something about it.